Hello, my foodie friends. It's me, your friendly neighborhood kitchen witch, Tara. Welcome to Recipes for the Cooking Impaired. And as you can see, we're not in a different location today. We are in the regular spot, mostly because I didn't know where to go next, and I hadn't gotten any comments about location recipes specifically. So we're going to do this. And today's recipe is an old recipe from 1937. I don't know how old it is before that, but the cookbook was from 1937. We tweaked it slightly, but this is Massachusetts meat pie, or a casserole, because it looks like a casserole, but they call it a pie. So, fun stuff. All right, so what we need is 2 cups of beef stock. If you're going to make this vegetarian, you would use vegetable instead of beef stock. 3 tablespoons of chopped onion. 1 cup of, let's back up slightly, 2 tablespoons of chopped green pepper. Now we have 1 cup of sliced celery, and you want the celery sliced about 1/4 of an inch thick. So not really thin, not super thick. That way it doesn't take too long to cook. 2 cups of cooked beef, or a beef substitute. So your beef substitute, if you're making a vegan, it could be tempeh, it could be tofu, any of those would be fine. 4 tablespoons of flour. 1 cup of diced, cooked, or sliced, cooked carrots. Now you're going to do the carrots ahead of time. We're not doing them on camera. You just want them to be slightly, you want them to be about half cooked. Soft enough that you can put the fork in, but not overcooked. Not soft enough to just take out and start eating. Because this is actually going to be baked in. But if you don't pre-cook it, then when you take the bake out, it's too hard and too crunchy. So pre-cook it about halfway. 2 cans of sliced mushrooms, and they're the smaller cans. Don't get the giant ones. I guess if you get the giant can, just do 1 of those. Otherwise, the small cans are about yay big. All right, and the next thing is you're going to need a can of biscuits. Those are the kind that you pop open, unroll, and the biscuits are already made. They're already circular. You just peel them apart. Or what we're actually going to do on film is how to make biscuits from scratch. And these are called baking powder biscuits. And the recipe for that is 2 cups flour, 3 teaspoons baking powder, 1 teaspoon of salt, 3/4 cup of milk. And this could also be 3/4 cup of a milk substitute. We're going to use goat's milk. But if you have any lactose problems and can't do goat's milk or cow milk, you could use almond milk, but make sure it's not the vanilla flavored. Make sure it's original. Or oat milk, but not flavored. 1/2 cup of margarine or butter. All right, and for my metric fans, I got you covered. Loo-doo, moo-doo-loo-loo-doo-loo-doo-doo, bloo-doo. Boo doo 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 boo boo doo 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 doo. You're done. That was your silly song for the day. Unregistered. Feel free to use it if you wish. All right, let's go into the kitchen and start making this. All right, so first we start with the hamburger, or the meat substitute. We're using bison. But hamburger or a meat substitute is fine. You can do Beyond Burger or something of the like. We're going to start cooking this. This is 1 pound. So this is on medium heat. We're going to start browning it. Once we have it all broken apart, we're going to add our vegetables. All right, so we're going to add our green peppers. And we're going to add our celery. and our carrots and our onions. And then we're going to let it all kind of cook down some. It's going to take a few minutes. All right, as you can see, it's starting to brown. We want it to be a little bit browner before we add our next ingredients. Okay, so everything is sufficiently browned and the celery and green peppers are starting to cook down a bit. We'd already pre-cooked the carrots a little, so they should be beautifully soft and moist and easy to munch once it comes out of the oven. At this time, if you haven't preset your oven, preset it for 450. We're going to add our next set of ingredients. We're adding our flour and our mushrooms. Okay, and again, guys, this is 4 tablespoons of flour and 2 cans of mushrooms. We're going to mix it in well before we add our beef stock. All right, we have everything mixed up. We're going to add our beef stock now. You just pour it in and then we'll mix it all together. And for those of you that might not have remembered from the beginning, this is 2 cups of beef stock or a substitute. If you're doing the vegan version of this recipe or vegetarian version of this recipe, you would be substituting the meat, and then the stock, you would use maybe vegetable stock as a alternative. We're going to let this sit now for just a few minutes, just has a chance to thicken a bit before we put it into our greased pan, this puppy right here. All right, my friends, so while we're waiting for the meat to thicken, well, not the meat to thicken, but the mix to thicken, we're going to go ahead and start making our bacon powder biscuits. Now remember, like I said in the opening, if you don't want to make your own biscuits, you can buy the biscuits that are pre-made that you just open up. I would not recommend rolls, but you can get the Pillsbury or the off-brand. Doesn't matter if it's the buttermilk or I wouldn't do extra flaky. I would stick with just the traditional biscuits. But we're going to go ahead and make our own because I didn't have any of that. So in this container is the flour and the salt. And we're going to add the baking powder to the mix. And we're going to stir that up ahead of time before we add in our margarine that's been softened and milk. Okay, now we're going to add in our softened butter and our milk. Now remember, for this butter, we're using actually margarine. Either one's fine. It's actually half a cup. And in the case of the sticks we had, that's 1 full stick. Double check the packaging just to make sure, because some vary from brand to brand. And then we're going to add our 3/4 cup of milk to this. This is one of the more basic, just easy biscuit recipes. And then we're going to mix it. Woo-hoo! All right, guys, as you can see, using the fork, you're getting a good mix. However, we're not getting everything. So you might actually have to get your hands dirty. Make sure, of course, as always, they're nice and clean. And put those paws in and start squishing the dough together. It probably feels a bit gross. It feels a bit weird. But it's the only way to get all of the extra flour. And plus, think of it this way. This is how the pioneer people and the historical, wonderful cooking folks made biscuits in the old days. Now, once you have it entirely mixed and it's a nice big ball, Then we're going to move it to putting it on the countertop that's been cleaned with some flour so we can roll it out and use our wonderful handy cup, which is pretending to be a dough cutter, and make our little circular biscuits. All right, guys, so first we're going to put a little bit more of a dusting. We already have a bit on there. A little more on the countertop and just kind of spread it around with your hands a little bit. If you have a little bit extra flour on the biscuits, it's going to be totally fine. Okay, go ahead and grab your ball, put it in the center, and we're going to roll it out. You want it 1/4 to 1/2 inch thick. And once it's fully rolled out, we can start cutting our biscuits. All right, now we have it ready. And we're going to go ahead and take our cup and just slide it on, twist it, and remove, just like so. I would recommend using a cup that doesn't have a real thick lip. Plastic cups like this work excellent. You also don't want a giant coffee cup, more so because it's going to take up too much space. Now you might be wondering, wait a minute, you have extra dough that you're not using for those, biscuits. What are you going to do with the extra? Well, dear friends, nothing goes to waste. Once we are done, we're going to mix it back together, squish it up, and roll it out, and try to make a few more biscuits. Okay, just squish up that leftover, and we'll see if we can get a couple more biscuits out of it. Look at that. We got enough to do a few more biscuits. Isn't that amazing? And you just keep doing this same pattern until you're completely out of dough. So the last biscuit might look a bit wonky, but that's okay. They don't have to be gorgeous. They just have to cover our meat pie. Okay, now as I said before, you're going to need a pan that has been well greased. We use shortening, but you can use butter or margarine. You can use olive oil if that's your thing. However, I don't really recommend it. I'd say stick with the margarine, butter, or shortening. We are going to bring our wonderful mix over and carefully pour it into the pan. And as you can still see, it's kind of juicy, but that is okay because the flour that is on top and below all the baking powder biscuits is going to help. Okay. All right, once everything's in, just kind of smooth it out. And once it's even, then you're going to just arrange the biscuits in a relatively orderly manner. You want to cover the whole thing in biscuit as much as possible. Now, if for some reason you have extra biscuits left over, awesome. Grab a cookie sheet and pop those in the oven. I would say cook them first on 350 instead of 450. This is only going to be in the oven cooking for 15 minutes at 450 degrees. Yes, you heard me right. 450. It's okay if they overlap a little bit. There we are. Everything's completely covered. Now we're going to go ahead and place it in the oven. You do not need to cover this in foil because we actually want it to brown on top. And because the meat has already been cooked and the vegetables are pre-cooked, we don't necessarily need to do extra heat holding in. All right, guys, it's been 15 minutes. We're going to take this puppy out. See how it looks. All right, not bad, not bad. Now, if you want to have the top just a tiny bit more browned, then what you would do is put it back into the oven for 5 to 10 more minutes and just check it frequently. I'm actually going to say, let's go ahead and put it back in. I like a little browner top. Do not change the temperature. In fact, what you can do even is turn off the oven, close it up, and let that residual heat take over, because it's not going to be very long. The food is already cooked. You just want a tiny bit more browning on the top. All right, we're checking again. A little browner, a little flakier. We're going to go ahead and take it. All right, friends, thank you so much for joining me today and watching the recipe / maybe making it yourself. Leave me a comment on what kind of foods you'd like me to make next, or would you like me to go back to doing the recipes around the world? I would love to know. Test me. I love it. All right, until then, my foodie friends, miss your faces already. Bye.